Indian states ban film on low-caste quotas in education. 3 Indian states have banned a new film on the controversial issue of education quotas for low-caste people. Arakshan, which means reservation, directed by well-known Bollywood filmmaker Prakash Jha and starring acting legend Amitabh Bachchan, was released on Friday. The northern states of Uttar Pradesh and Punjab and Andhra Pradesh in the south banned the film due to fears it may cause law and order situations. Critics say film uses objectionable terms to describe low-caste Hindus. Mr. Jha, who is known for making films on controversial social issues, denies the charge.
I'm very curious to know as to what the contentions are, and I would like to assure them, if they talk to me, that all their apprehensions are quite misfounded. Tests or reactions to something that you see is understood.
It has been endorsed and accepted by the Supreme Court, the highest legal authority of the country. Right. And in a democratic setup, it is our duty to abide by it, and we are law-abiding citizens. We will abide by it.
Pakistan, Peshawar twin blast kills 7. At least 7 people have been killed in twin bombings in the northwestern Pakistani city of Peshawar, police say. In the first incident, 4 police officers and a child were killed when a remote-controlled bomb exploded near a police vehicle in the Lahori Gate area. Later, a woman suicide bomber killed herself and another woman, possibly her companion, by detonating her jacket. She was trying to target the police checkpoint about 400 meters from the spot where the police vehicle was hit. Militant attacks in Pakistan have risen sharply since May, when U.S. commandos killed Al-Qaeda leader Osama bin Laden. Since then, a paramilitary academy, a naval base, government buildings, a police station, and U.S. consulate convoy have been attacked. In the first attack on Thursday morning, the explosive device was hidden in a handcraft packed at the roadside and detonated remotely when police approached. Police officer Lijaz Khan told reporters. Their vehicle was transporting over 24 policemen from Kotwali police station in the eastern part of the city to the police lines near the city center, he said. The vehicle was wrecked in the blast and a group of schoolboys were at the site when the bomb exploded. A 12-year-old boy was among those killed. At least 21 people, including 17 policemen, were injured in the blast. Killers of Rajiv Gandhi lost clemency bid. Indian President Pratibha Patil has rejected mercy pleas from 3 Tamils convicted of the 1991 assassination of former Prime Minister Rajiv Gandhi. In theory, the ruling paves the way for their execution, officials say. However, there are a growing number of people on death row who have exhausted all legal appeals but whose sentences have not been carried out. Correspondents say bureaucratic delays and shortage of hangmen have contributed to the backlog. The rejection of clemency petitions happened last week after the president returned from a foreign tour. Presidential spokeswoman Archana Datta told AFP news agency.
For me, the big learning that came from that meeting was exactly this, that I was still, though I was not angry anymore, I did not hate her, I did not, and I wanted to meet her, I was still thinking that I was somebody who could forgive her for something she had done.
Israelis staged mass protests over rising cost. At least 250,000 of Israelis have staged marches over the rising cost of living. The largest protest was in Tel Aviv, where police said at least 2 lakh people were on the streets, while another 30,000 marched in Jerusalem. In one of the biggest waves of protests in decades in Israel, demonstrators are demanding government action to reduce the cost of housing and food. Some protesters have also set up camp in city centers. Police spokesman Mickey Rosenfeld that as well as Tel Aviv and Jerusalem, an estimated 20,000 people have taken part in protest in other towns as well. India pilot daughter acts of Pakistani pilot's remorse. The daughter of a dead Indian pilot has thanked a Pakistani fighter pilot for apologizing after shooting down the aircraft that her father was commanding more than 4 decades ago. Farida Singh said the incident happened in confusion of a tragic war. Her father, Jahangir Engineer, was flying the plane which had apparently drifted off course along the border. Qais Hussain, who was a Pakistani pilot during 1965 war with India, shot down the 8-seater plane. Earlier, he wrote to Mrs. Singh saying he was sorry for the loss of precious lives during the incident and was acting under orders from his superiors. The Pakistanis suspected the aircraft for being a reconnaissance mission to open a new war front. Mr. Hussain was ordered to shoot it down despite pleas of mercy by Mr. Engineer. The former fighter pilot said that when he landed back at the air base at Karachi, he felt highly elated for having completed the mission successfully. But the mood changed later that evening when All India Radio announced that the plane had been a civilian Indian aircraft with 8 people on board. In a letter to Farida Singh, Mr. Hussain said everyone connected with the incident felt sorry and dejected. Mrs. Singh replied that she was somewhat overwhelmed at receiving the letter. She said the death of her father had defined our lives. We'll move on to the business world. It zigs, it zags. U.S. market rises 4% after a down day. Continuing the wild swings from panic selling and to forward buying and back, stocks soared on Thursday, leaving investors bewildered about what might come next. In a display of wild volatility, the American stock market this week has produced altering days of collapsing prices, accompanied by speculation of a renewed financial crisis that could be even worse than the one that began in 2008, and sharply rising prices amid reassurances that banks are healthy and corporate profits strong. On Thursday, the Standard & Poor's 500 stock index soared 51.88 points, or 4.6%, to 1,172.64. Traders pointed to a small decline in claims for unemployment insurance in the United States and the reassurances of French officials that their country banks were safe. That gain recovered all of a 4.4% decline on Wednesday. For the 2 days, the index was up by 0.11 points, or 0.01%. On Monday, the market had fallen by 6.7%, only to leap by 4.7% on Tuesday. So far this week, the index is down by 2.2%. Welcome to the world of science. Hot chemotherapy bath, patients see hope, critics hold doubts. This cancer therapy at its most aggressive, a treatment patients liken to being filleted, disemboweled, and then bathed in hot poison. The therapy, which couples extensive abdominal surgery with blasts of heated chemotherapy to the abdominal cavity and its organs, was once a niche procedure used mainly against rare cancers of the appendix. Most academic medical centers shunned it. More recently, as competition for patients and treatments intensifies, an increasing number of the nation's leading medical centers have been offering the costly and controversial therapy to patients with more common colorectal or ovarian cancers. And some hospitals are even publicizing the treatments as a hot chemo bath. To critics, the therapy is merely the latest example of one that catches on with little evidence that it really works. We are practicing this technique that has almost no basis in science, said Dr. David P. Ryan, clinical director of the Massachusetts General Hospital Cancer Center. And in sports, For Mullin, entering the Hall of Fame means saying thanks. 3 to 5 minutes, Chris Mullin was told, and this made him happy, a little bit relieved. He would not have to speak all that long, notwithstanding how far his oratory skills have come since the days when he mostly spoke as a sign language of his own with a ball or a beer. Short and concise, he said of the acceptance speech he was planning for Friday night at the Naismith Memorial Basketball Hall of Fame induction ceremony. "But you are on television," I said. I had known Mullin since he was a blue-collar kid from Troy Avenue in the Flatland section of Brooklyn with linguistic proclivity for replacing th and d. Mullin, an ESPN analyst, laughed and said, "Well, there are a lot of people I do need to thank." Where does Mullin begin with such a crowded inner circle and expected basketball family that could pass for a small army, and with fair share of folks who have been with him step off the way planning to attend the ceremony in Springfield, Mass. Now, before we end today's bulletin of news analysis, let's have a recap of the main points. CIA is disputed on civilian toll in drone strikes. Protests force Israel to confront wealth gap. Politicians and protesters assail British police. Syria unrest, US calls for wider sanctions. England riots, Cameron says police admit to wrong tactics. China manufacturer China Sienna recalls 54 bullet trains. And there we end today's bulletin of news analysis. Be with us in the coming weeks to thank you